My name is Chris Schwartz. I work for NAI Keystone. We have a couple of our other team members on the line here today who are going to be helping out with some of the things during our discussion. But our speaker today is Bryan Cole. Bryan is a partner at NAI Keystone, amongst lots of other things that he does. And he's going to share with us today a first quarter 2020 update on the commercial office real estate market, just what's going on in our markets and our perspective on what's going on. So without further ado, we'll turn things over to Bryan. And if you have questions, you can certainly type them into the chat feature at the bottom of your screen, and we'll address them towards the end of the meeting. So thanks a lot for being here. And Bryan, why don't you have at it?
All right, thank you. Well, hey, good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us. I was just talking to our team a little bit earlier, looking outside of how nice it was, and thinking we were either going to lose a few folks to the meeting, or two, I'm going to reduce all of my slides so we can get outside sooner. So I went ahead and decided to reduce our slides. So now we're down to half. So that should cut the time down a little bit here. So hey, I hope everybody is staying safe. Families are safe and healthy. I'd like to thank our team at NAI. They're doing a great job with these office market, setting these office market reports up. And obviously we're hoping we can do this on a regular basis moving forward after we're all back to work and, our day to day. So what we're here today to talk about is the office and medical market. Obviously the office and medical market makes up a large part of not only Berks County, but, various markets throughout the country. So I think it's important that we have our finger on the pulse. We know where we're at today, where we were coming into 2020, and what our hopes, expectations could be going into the second quarter of this year, which is obviously a time will tell. So Megan, if you wouldn't mind putting up the slide for where we were moving into 2020. So here are some of the highlights where we were going into 2020. So overall, the market was very, very strong, leaving end of year 2019, coming into 2020. We had numerous expansions taking place with some of the local health systems. Penn State Health, Tower Health had numerous developments underway, some of which were throughout the county. Others were, of course, in the heart of Wyomissing at the former Vanity Fair outlets. The positive, it wasn't just healthcare that was expanding. We had continuous activity within other sectors as well, including IT, insurance outfits, financial outfits, and some nonprofits as well. In addition, which I think is a huge gauge to where the market was, tenant concessions were down. Tenant concessions are free rent, higher TI dollars. Those things were being offered, but they were being offered for primarily longer term users, longer term leases, so on and so forth. So I think that was a big indicator showing where the market was when concessions are down across the board. As it relates to the investment market, I think it's fair to say we were lacking quality long-term investment assets. Long-term being 10, 12, 15-year leases with credit tenants in those assets. We were still commanding low cap rates for those types of assets. We just unfortunately didn't have a whole lot to pull from. So moving forward, just talking about vacancy rates, absorption, rental rates, to give you an idea, and you can go to the next slide, Megan. So to give you an idea of how we track or where we come up with these numbers, there's many third-party sources that put out analytical data as it relates to vacancy rates and rental rates. The way we track it is we have 78 Class A office buildings in Berks County that we track, 229 Class B office buildings. So all the data that we put out there are based upon these properties. For the suburbs, that's about 7.4 million square feet of total product of both A and B. In downtown, we're tracking, we're only classifying 9 as Class A buildings, 40 as Class B. That gives us plus minus 2.5 million square feet of total product. So although these properties may change the asset classes may change. These are the ones that we've used for the past number of quarters to come up with our vacancy rates. You can go to the next slide there. Okay, so here's a chart of where our vacancy, or I'm sorry, that's the rental rates. Can you go back one? This is a chart of where our vacancy rates have been since we've been tracking, which we've been tracking it since 2003. You can see where 19's fourth quarter and 2020's first quarter, what it looked like. So our Class A office buildings in the suburban market, we had a 4.2% vacancy rate. That was for just existing product. That did not include any proposed product that was coming online. If you include that, and proposed product is defined as fully entitled, you just need to put a shovel in the ground, but it is fully entitled product, that would bump the rate up to 6.4%. The reason I do include that in our numbers, it is considered competitive product. These things could, since they're fully entitled, you could go vertical fairly quickly. There's an additional 100,000 square feet of proposed product in Berks that is not entitled. So we are not tracking that in our vacancy rate numbers. Going into Class B product, so our vacancy rate is going to seem high on the Class B. It's at 18.5% countywide. And again, this is not taking into consideration downtown Reading properties. So the 18.5% includes two particular properties that make up 271,000 square feet of the vacancy. If we were to remove those two, and the reason I'm willing to remove those two is one is under redevelopment for a change of use, and the second one has trouble splitting it up for smaller users. So although it's a vacant property, it's a Class B property, if we were to remove those two, our vacancy rate comes down to 10.9%, which is consistent with some of our surrounding markets, including Philadelphia, and our national averages are around 9.9. Philadelphia is at 8.5, national is 9.9. So we're not too far off from the national and Philadelphia totals. As far as our rental rates, we've been pretty, you can go to the next slide, Megan. We've been pretty consistent with our rental rates. So Class A suburban market is 2050 to 24.5 plus electric. Our Class B buildings are $16.5 to $23 per square foot plus electric. And this has remained relatively flat throughout 2019 going into 2020. Typically the variable is the concessions that were being offered, a little bit more tenant improvement dollars, again, depending on the length of the lease, and we're offering some free rent, but the base rental rates have remained consistent for the past few years. So that's where we were coming into 2020. So to talk a little bit about our current climate, now, obviously, I think we can all agree, we're in a very strange time right now across the board. The past 30 to 45 days has obviously been very sad for many businesses and individuals. However, I have a habit of looking at some of the positive things that have come out of it, and it's been pretty interesting to see how some local businesses have adapted to the stay at home, and many restaurants quickly adapted from in-house dining to takeout and delivery. The way our local health systems, they push to create the drive-through testing sites and or dedicated facilities for those possibly exposed to the virus, including some pediatrician offices. There's been retailers both nationally and locally, mom and pops, that have created curbside pickups. We've had numerous companies able to create work from home environments for their employees to take advantage of all the technology that we have at our disposal. So I think that's important to look at how we adapted from where we were to where we're at today and what we've done over the past 30 to 45 days. It's kind of remarkable how some of these companies have handled it. And on the real estate side, Obviously, these market overviews is one testament to that. But we've created and we've been heavily involved in virtual marketing, co-marketing, virtual tours, which is something I think we're gonna see moving forward. And it was something that was happening anyway, because it's hard to get folks from around the country. If you're doing deals with larger companies, to get folks from around the country to fly in to look at a space. Now you can send links to those buildings, to those suites, and they don't even have to bring anybody on site to take a look at it, unless it's the final visit. But it saves quite a bit of time and money in the process. So and now that's the positive. The negative is there's definitely certain industries that are going to feel the pain more so than others. We have ideas of what some of those industries could be, but quite frankly, only time will tell. Obviously, the loan programs that have been offered by either the local and federal governments have helped quite a bit of our local businesses. But again, only time will tell what's going to end up happening for the months to come. So we've had a few quote unquote victims of the within the past 30 to 45 days, but I have a feeling some of those closures were pre-planned, and it was a change to their business models or mergers. So although the timing wasn't great, these are things that I think were in the works anyhow. I don't think anybody closed specifically because of the pandemic. They were planned closures to begin with. So let's talk about the coming months. We want to let you know what we're hearing, especially obviously on the office and the market side. Questions that we're hearing are similar to the ones that we heard in 08 and 09. How is this going to change the way we work? Is it going to cause users to downsize? And I think the answers are the same as they were coming out of the 08, 09 timeframe, is we just don't know. We've heard economists talk about where things could be going. We've listened to other brokerage houses and consultants talk about where things could go, but no one really has it's all guesses at this point. I think the months to come is that's where we're going to find out where things are going on the office and the medical side. Some things being contemplated are pretty straightforward. For companies, do we have the mobile technology platforms in place to adapt if something like this were to happen again? Cloud platforms allow for easy access to our data. One of the things I'm pretty confident is going to change absolutely in the medical side, but also on the office side, are janitorial specifications. We're already seeing it from some of our national tenants that they have higher specs that they're gonna want to see. So I can imagine that's going to happen across the board, specifically in the medical buildings, but again in the office side as well. And the leases, we're undoubtedly going to see clauses. And some are calling it the pandemic clause, but we're going to see some clauses in our leases moving forward that are not only going to protect the landlord and of course the tenant as well in the event of another pandemic or something that's going to have a closure that exceeds a weekly or monthly basis. So I think again, time is going to tell. Other items that I think it's going to take a little bit more investigating. Private offices. It went from private offices to open air and co-working spaces. Who knows if we're going to see a reverse to that? Is it going to become more private offices? The other item is companies downsizing their real estate requirements. It could have an opposite effect where people want more space per person. So we may see companies that want more space. And of course, video conferencing and data hookups and all that is going to become it's already important, but it's going to become much more important. So that's where what we see for the coming months. I would say if anybody has any questions at this point, we wanted to let you know where we're at, where we came from, and possibly where we're going. So I would open up to any questions.
Okay. We do have just a couple. And it's also fun to see that former Vice President Agnew has joined us on the participant list. So I'm anxious to see who that might be. Um, uh, so only half of the group seemed to get that joke. And I can't wait to see who that human being actually is. Anyway, um, we had a similar question since than we had in our industrial side, which had to do with rent relief. You know, you see a lot of stuff in the news right now about rent strikes and people not wanting to pay rent. And I can imagine that this market is no different. You know, what have you seen? What are you hearing?
No, that's a fair question, and of course, it's one we're getting on a regular basis. And fortunately or unfortunately, we're on both sides of the table on many cases. So we represent quite a bit of landlords. So we're getting those rent deferral requests or concession requests from tenants, and then we of course rent the tenant side, or we represent the tenant side. So we're sending those requests on certain groups' behalfs. But you know, the easy answer is not every tenant is the same. So we need to address this on a user to user basis. I wish I could say, you know, we blanket the answer across the board. We just can't do that because, you know, certain folks have been affected much more so than others. So we're just looking at it on a case by case basis. We are not saying yes to everyone. We're not saying no. We're just looking at where things are going. Because if we said yes back on the, let's say the second week of March, who thought we were going to be doing this for 45 days or possibly 60 days? So we need to address it on a month-to-month basis, and we're being fair with our tenants and fair with the landlords. And all concessions are if they are granted, they're only deferments. We're not providing free rent or anything at this point, because quite frankly, the landlords aren't getting concessions from the governing bodies right now. So but we are working with our tenants.
Yep.
And obviously the PPP plan was important as well, because obviously that has certain clauses, and I'm not going to pretend I'm an expert on it, but it had certain clauses that rental payments were part of it. So I think that is a benefit for some landlords, but it's great for the tenants and other small businesses.
I think, and we saw with, you know, some of the people that we do work with, that their financing might be bond based, and any modification that they'd want to make to some of their documents that got them that bond is super hard to do. So rent relief is super tricky in those cases.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we're just, obviously we're all in it together. We want to figure out ways that it's going to work for everyone. And I will tell you, every tenant that we've received a request from has been more than fair, and we've negotiated with them that, you know, we'll get through this and they'll come out just as strong as well.
Andrew, I think there were a couple more that popped up. What do you have on deck there?
My main question was about the rent deferment. That's actually the one that I got texted as well. I guess maybe if you could talk on the potential that video conferencing can have and whatnot. Obviously, we're talking through video chat right now. Is that something that should worry long term, or?
You know, I don't. The honest answer is I don't know. We didn't do a whole lot of it before this. I'm not used to it yet. I mean, I need to stand up and walk around while I'm talking, so this is a little difficult for me, but maybe I'll get used to it. I think it was already becoming, most conference rooms were being set up with teleconferencing anyway. You know, I think with what we're doing now, these market overviews, I think this is great to be able to do it via conference rather than, you know, send out the hard copies or the you know, the mailers or anything. I think this is great. So I do think it's going to catch on certain fronts. Videos for real estate, videos for other. I mean, that's been, you know, happening for the past, you know, number of years. But who knows what's going to end up happening after this? It's good to see everybody's faces, but it's you know, it's still a little. You got to get used to it. So
yeah. So another one that popped up that dovetails into that that came through Pam Shutt, which is, do you believe that the infrastructure exists to support what's a likely change in how we do business here with IT and telephone infrastructure?
That is a great question, and I think one of our segments is we're going to get somebody in that's what they do. Because do I think every building in this county has the ability to do that? I really don't. I think if you're in a main campus in Wyomissing, I think the infrastructure is in place to do that. But if you're in the surrounding markets, and I'm not going to throw any certain municipality in there, but if you're in the surrounding markets, I don't know if you have the infrastructure to support what we're talking about. If you're in the main markets, I do, but some of the surrounding areas, I don't think they have the infrastructure. So it's something that's going to have to be looked at, and I would recommend if we can get somebody on our next segment that's what they do. I think a lot of people are going to have a similar question.
Yeah, that's fair. Okay. That's sort of exhausted the questions that we've had. So we'll wait another second or two if nothing else pops up. Bryan, I don't know if you have any closing words. You want to thank everybody. If you have pictures of a cat or dog you want to hold up.
No, they're all out for a walk now that it's nice out. So I don't have any dogs barking in the background or kids yelling at me. So no, it's this is. I appreciate everybody taking some time to get on. Obviously, it's finally a nice day out. So I didn't want to keep anybody on long. I wanted to get to it. And if you have any questions moving forward, feel free to reach out to us. If you didn't catch Steve's segment 2 weeks ago on the industrial market, I would recommend you going onto our website and taking a look at that, because this is there's no doubt that this is a very interesting time for all of us. And the hope is we bounce back quickly and we get back to work, sooner than later. So I'm looking forward to getting to the office.
Thanks. Hey, everybody, you will get a follow-up email with a survey and a link to the video from this if you'd like to rewatch any of the numbers or any of the charts that came up for what you do. Appreciate you taking the time, and we'll be back again with another topic pretty soon. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.